Afternoon, guys. Thoughts. I've been using this knife for a few hours, so I thought I might tell you what it is and just give you a little idea what I think of it. Okay, now this is not a full-on review, and I'll tell you why it's not a full review. This is just like a first impressions review after using it for a couple of hours non-stop. Okay, so this is the sailor and boat knife made by Otter, which is Solingen, Germany, or Solingen, I don't know how to pronounce it, Germany. It's a very well known brand, and they make exceptional knives, really good knives. This is the sheath that comes into, lovely traditional style sheath, nice heavy duty stitching on the belt loop. I love the smell of leather. Quality heavy duty stitching, nice leather welt, thick leather welt. So yeah, it's about as basic as the sheath goes. It's a bit like a puko style sheath, rounded at the top. So yeah, onto the knife. Sailor and Bolt's knife made by Otter, Germany. This is made in Germany as well. It does say so on the blade, common Otter blade in Solingen, Germany. It says it on there on the blade. There's two different versions of this knife. You can get it in stainless steel or carbon steel. I prefer my carbon steel, as you guys probably know. And the carbon steel is C75 carbon steel, which is a basic carbon steel. It's really nice tool steel as well. I've used it before, but this is the first time I've used an Otter knife, but sailor and boat knife. As I said in my last video, I'm trying to look at different styles of blades. I love my blades. I love using different blades for different things, especially bushcraft, and I'm trying to gather together a traditional kind of kit. And a knife like this would have been like kind of a traditional knife, if you like, maybe 100 years ago plus. They tend to use back then like butcher's knives and things like that. It's made really well. It's nice solid oak handle scales, two brass rivets, got a brass lanyard hole there as well, just to put a lanyard in, and it's tapered as well. Full tank construction, as you can see, goes all the way through the handle. It's tapered as well, so if you look at the underneath the knife, I'd say it's about 2 mil, and then you look at the top of the knife and it's about 2.5 mil. Okay, that's very good design, that, very good. Makes it a hell of a lot stronger, more lightweight as well. So I think the blade's around about 5 inches, 5-inch long blade, which is acceptable for most bushcraft / survival knife. But this is not a heavy duty survival knife, nor was it intended to be either. So yeah, you can baton with this knife, but obviously baton no thicker than, let's say, this or your wrist, and it will take it as long as there's no tough knots in there, but no thicker than your wrist. Then no, I'd say, because of the thickness of the blade, then no, it wouldn't be good for that. Chopping wise, again, I've not chopped with this blade yet, but again, it's not really a knife designed for chopping. It's a lightweight knife. Yeah, you might be able to chop and delimb some trees, but apart from that, you're going to get no power behind your chops whatsoever with this, because it's such a lightweight and thin blade. So yeah, delimbing, yeah, it'll be fine for that. But again, be very careful when you're delimbing, what thickness you decide to go with, whatever you're making. So far I've only limbed a few twigs off a branch that's probably about a little bit thicker than my finger. Struggled a few bits because obviously it's not what it's designed for, but it did do it eventually. Okay, so I've not done anything with this knife yet, so I've not stropped it or sharpened it or anything like that. So with things like green wood, so yeah, got some green wood here, absolutely blitzed through that, as most knives will, because this is like green wood. I think this is ash, it might be apple, no it's apple, so this is apple, green apple. As you can see, goes through that absolutely no problem whatsoever, and that's because it's a flat grind. Okay, so as you can see, blade profile, put it to the side, flat grind with secondary bevel, like a V edge. It's only very small, so it makes it a good slicer for green wood. Really good. Chest lever, yeah, again, green wood, no problem, full control, absolutely easy. Now get something harder. I think this is cherry, and again it will do it, but this is seasoned cherry, so it is hard. Okay, struggling a bit, but it is doing it. Okay, so we'll do it. Okay, debarking, yeah, do that as well. Or if you don't want to debark with the blade, you can use the back of the blade, because the back of the blade is actually nice, sharp, 90-degree angle. So yes, you will be able to strike this with a ferro rod, although I've not tried it, but it is sharp, so, and it is carbon steel. So back of the blade, you can probably hear how rough that is. Shaves the bark off, no problem. So yeah, because of that spine, no problems whatsoever. Nice sharp spine. So I'm just getting the bark off. So yeah, nice sharp spine, no problems whatsoever. Now originally this, as the name suggests, it is a sailor's knife, sailor boat knife, and its intended purpose was obviously to cut the rigs and the ropes and things off of boats, and maybe some descaling some fish, gutting some fish, and things of that nature. Skinning, yes, you could skin with this. It's got a very slim profile, and the drop point there, obviously you can choke up on it there and there, and it's perfect for skinning. That bit there, absolutely perfect, because of that rounded profile there and that drop point, making it perfect for skinning or cutting the bellies open of fish and things of that nature. So this is what it was designed for. Okay, now for things like food prep, no problems there whatsoever. Cutting your veggies and things like that, it's really good slicer. As far as food prep and skinning goes, then yes, this is what it's designed for, so yes, it's going to excel in that. Now we come to what I want to do with it, what I bought it for. As you know, I like my traditional knives, and to me this looks like a bit of So say a Kephart knife kind of shape. If you look at the profile and everything, it does resemble a traditional Kephart knife, especially the blade shape, and that's why I bought it. That's what attracted me, because I love Kephart blades, I love Kephart knives, traditional ones. However, those are the good points. Now we come to the bad points. Now, using this for bushcraft, yes, you could use it for bushcraft. It blitzes through greenwood, like I just said. We've got some apple here, blitz through that, absolutely no problem at all. We'll do it all day long. Feather sticks, feather sticking. Let's use this piece of wood as an example. Not really prepared myself for this video, but yeah, we could do it. Okay, so this is not natural wood, but I'll change it to a different piece of wood. So say if we're in the woods, rather than a man-made wood from a pallet, I'll use one of these. Okay, so feather stick in, we'll have a look. Yeah, see, because of the thin profile on that edge, then yes, absolutely blitzes through it really well. Good feather stick. Feather stick with this all day long. Okay, just doing it quickly. I don't want the video to go on for hours and hours. Okay, so yes, to say that's a rush job, I'd say that's a pass. And again, because of the thin blade profile, that's what it's designed for, slicing, cutting things. But like I said earlier, my intended purposes of using this was for bushcraft, and that's where it's a bit of a negative, probably more negatives than positive. Yes, it'll do your shave your bark and your feather sticks and things like that, but the biggest downer for me, in fact there's two downers for me, is number one is the edge profile. Flat grind is really good grind to have for slicing, etc. But for bushcraft, now most flat grinds do have a secondary bevel, obviously, otherwise it's going to chip and snap otherwise. So you do need something on the edge of a flat grind, whether it be a secondary bevel or a V-edge, which is what this one's got. But the problem with that is, when you go to process wood, the edge is on this is so tiny that it struggles to bite into the wood. It even struggles to bite in green wood. Like, let's say if you want to do some notching, and if you're using wood that's more harder than the wood I've been using, like apple, let's say hardwood like say pine or oak, which I've also tested this knife with, it struggled, really struggled, especially with the notching. It did do it eventually, but if I was using this for bushcraft, I want the tool to do the work, and not I don't want to do all the work myself. That's the tool, that's the job of the tool. And you may or may not agree with me where I've put it. Like this. That would help. It's behind me. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so this is oak. I wouldn't say it's been seasoning for very long, but it is solid, because obviously it's a hardwood. So it's a good test. And as well as greenwood, I always test every single blade that I have on hardwood. Most of the time it's oak, because that is absolute rock solid, or ash. Pretty much the same level as oak. A lot of people say that ash is more harder than oak, but I've really not can't tell a difference, to be fair. But anyway, so oak, which is a bit more solid, still carves with it. And for things like this is where flat grind really comes into its own for slicing. Okay. And yes, it does struggle when it gets to knots, obviously, but so does most knives. Okay, so chest lever, oak. Once you get past the first layer of oak, it's rather soft inside. So yeah, it'll do that as well. But when you come to notching, and I do practice on hardwood with a stick this thickness, okay? I do that for a reason, to make it harder for myself, so that the tool has to work harder, and it really tests the edge grind on the knife when you're doing it. So if you're out in the field and you need to make a heavy duty tent peg, for example, then this is the kind of thickness that I'd be using. Okay, so try and spot. Okay, so normally I would do this, put the knife in there, press it down with my thumb, like an indentation. Okay, now pull the knife out. So there's your stopper. Okay, so now I'm going to the carving. So, keeping the edge away from you. See, really struggles to do this. It's not down to technique. I use the same technique on all my knives, notching. The problem is the grind. The grind is way too shallow, and finish it off by pressing the knife at the stock cut. As you can see, it will come out, but it takes time. Okay, so there's the notch I've just done. The one at the bottom. You could probably tell that them notches were done by a much sharper knife or better blade profile than this has got. So we'll just carry on working this notch. And like I said, it's because this knife was not designed to do this. Okay. You know, you're not going to do a sailor on a boat or a big voyage isn't going to be dropped off in an island, and he's not going to use a knife like this, maybe for notching or making pot hangers and things like that. Because again, it's not what this tool is designed for. So for me, that's a bit of a negative, a bit of a con, is the edge profile. For me, it doesn't. It does slice, but it could be a lot better. And notching for me is really important. I do quite a lot of making my own tent pegs and things of that nature, and pot hangers. So being able to notch is very important, and this is the tool that I wouldn't recommend to doing that kind of bushcraft. Again, because of that profile. Yes, because a flat grind is supposed to be able to cope with things like that. You know, it's 2.5mm thick, full flat grind. It should be amazing slicer and notcher, but it isn't, and it's because of that edge, that secondary bevel there, all because of that edge. Now, what I plan to do is take it home and I'm going to increase the edge of this knife, probably maybe a couple of millimeters, so you've got more of a substantial cutting edge like most flat grinds have. I did the same to my Ontario old hickory hunting knife, and I absolutely love that knife, and it's amazing for bushcraft now because I modified the grind on it. So I'm going to put the same grind I did on that and put it on this one as well, and that should hopefully be better at notching, which is very important in the world of bushcraft, especially to me as well. Another con is the handle. The handle is very small. I haven't got large hands. I've got, I'd say for a man, I'd say medium sized hands. Okay, so I grip the knife. Yes, it's still see the pommel there going through, but I've only got medium sized hands. If you've got large hands, you will struggle with this knife. Okay, you will struggle. So if you've got small hands, this will be perfect for you. Medium sized hands like I've got, you might struggle a little bit, but I suppose you can get used to it. But if you've got larger hands than what I've got, then you will really fall out with this knife, because it's definitely not for large hands. It's a bit of a surprise really, because this is like this is branded as a sailor and boat knife, and you would have thought most sailors and fishermen and things like that, when processing fish and things like that, they do wear gloves. And if you wore gloves with this, your hands will keep slipping off it. I mean, you know, it's hardly big enough for your normal hand, but never mind if you've got gloves on, then you know it'd be no good. So this handle should have been an inch longer, I think, in my opinion. If it was 1 inch longer in the handle, then yes, it would be really good. I do like my longer handles and thicker handles, so this would take quite some getting used to, but it is comfortable. It can be used for long periods. I've used it non-stop this morning for 2 hours. Didn't really feel any hot spots. It did what it's supposed to do, but I just prefer it. I wish to just put another inch on the end, to make it that little bit longer. So yeah, we've gone through the specs, we've gone through the handle, the edge geometry of the flat grind, which is going to be changed, which is probably going to be the next video that I do. And I'm still doing the video on the knife sharpening, by the way, and what I recommend for beginners, which I'll be doing very soon, into the new year. But we'll do a modification on this and then see how that performs as well. So yeah, overall at the minute, I'd probably give it about 6. I'd give it a 6 out of 10 in a minute. Steel's very good, very strong for what it is. It's only 2.5mm, but it is what it is. We'll do all the tasks that you want with a bushcraft knife, but it won't bat on through, say, 6-inch thick logs or anything like that. You know, it's not made for that. If you're going to use this as a full-time bushcraft knife, like I'm going to, the edge geometry definitely needs to be changed. You know, if you leave the edge geometry like this and it works for you, then fine. But for me, it's far too shallow. It's too small, that edge. It just needs bringing up a couple of millimeters for it to just give that a little bit more of a bite and a bit more sliceability when you get to the harder woods. Green woods, it's absolutely fine, but with the much harder woods like oak and your ash and pine, you're really going to struggle with this, with the edge geometry that it's got on at the minute. So yeah, so that's going to get modified. I wish the handle was longer, and very well made, very well constructed. Another thing as well I noticed, and at first it's really not noticeable until you get into the light, is that the grind lines, the grind isn't 100% straight on both sides. It reminds me of the cold steel old hickory, because the grind was out on that as well. It's very hard to show you on camera, and I've only got my phone on me, so yeah, it's not going to pick that up, but trust me when I say this, the grind on both sides is out. It's not 100%. You can definitely tell it's not 100%, especially when you look at the tip end. It did come hair shaving sharp though out of the box, but it was only hair shaving sharp, I'd say around that area and at the bottom, but in the middle and towards the tip as well, it wasn't hair shaving sharp. It's a bit of a disappointment really, but obviously, like I just said, in close inspection, the reason is because the grind lines are out, and you can see that now. I've got strong light, you can definitely see that that the apex isn't centre as it should be, especially at the tip. It's definitely not centre, whereas down here, where it was hair shaving sharp when I first got it, it is dead centre. Okay, so here is not dead centre, here is dead centre, but then as you get towards the middle down, it is not 100%, so you're not getting the full apex, which will impact its ability to be a good slicer. You want the apex to be equal on both sides. The apex needs to meet in the middle. That's very important. And if a knife hasn't got a perfect apex all the way along, then you're going to struggle with it, and it won't slice as good as an apex that is 100% all the way along. So that's another thing that needs addressing. So it's kind of a delicate operation really when you come to reprofile blade like this, because bearing in mind this is only 2mm thick, so I haven't got a lot to play with this steel. So it's quite delicate really, because you know, if you use a stone that's too coarse, then it's going to remove a lot of materials, and there's going to be no blade left. There's going to be no metal left by the time I've done, and obviously, and that's going to make it far too brittle. So I really have to think very carefully how I'm going to do it. But it was the same as what I did with the Ontario old hickory knife, and that was thinner than this. But I managed to do that on that fine, and it's ended up being a really good bushcraft knife, which I still use. So this being a little bit thicker, I'm expecting it to be a better slicer than that of the Ontario old hickory. I just wish that handle was a little bit bigger. So yeah, those few things really. If you planning on getting one of these, it is well worth the money. Fit and finish is absolutely spot on, apart from the grind. The apex isn't 100% over the entire length of the blade, and it needs to be. So if you've got the skill to reprofile the edge, then once you've done that, this is going to be a really good knife, and really nice traditional knife. So I'm going to cut off there, and I'll show you what I've done to it in my next video of this review. But at the minute it stands, it's 6 out of 10. I'm hoping to increase that grade once I reprofile that edge. So yeah, that's my short-term review, 2-hour review of using this knife, 2 hours in the morning, and they're my first impressions. So hope you've all had a nice Christmas, and I don't know if the video is going to be done before the new year, but I'll try my best. Obviously I've got a lot of things to do beforehand, so if I've got time to reprofile it, then I'll show you. But hope you guys have had a wonderful Christmas, and if I don't see you before, have an absolute banging new year, and don't get too drunk. Bye for now. Peace.